Good evening, good evening, good evening. I am Dr. Deborah Jenkins, your host for Black Talk Platform, where we speak about everything concerning the Black community. Tonight, I am so delighted to welcome to the first time to Black Talk Platform, Chief Jeffrey Maddrey. He is the NYPD chief for the Community Affairs Bureau, and we are excited to welcome him to Black Talk Platform, where we'll get an opportunity to discuss police reform from the NYPD's perspective and all of the initiatives or some of the initiatives that Chief Maddrey has implemented since he's taken on this high-level leadership role within the NYPD. I am happy to have worked with him for nearly a year around police reform, helping strengthen his base. But the reality is, from my viewpoint anyway, is that Chief Maddrey is not limited to the Community Affairs Bureau. He is sought after in the entire organism called the NYPD because of his leadership and because of the unique role his officers play in keeping our city safe and in ensuring the safety of the citizens, even when controversy abounds. So we're going to have a nice conversation with Chief Maddrey. I have invited back some of my guests who have appeared on Black Talk Platform over the last year. Pastor Anthony Davis, he of the Harvest Restoration Ministries in Co-op City. He was my first guest, and he's been a frequent guest on the show. My good friend Chaplain Tandra Birkett has also been on the show several times. And we have other guests who will be coming, and I believe that they're arriving now. And I'm going to bring them on. Before I bring the chief up for introductions, there is my good friend from the Bronx also, Gbenguze. He is a community activist and community leader. And Chief, you'll be happy to hear when we start our conversation that he speaks very highly of the NCO program and the work that is being done around that. Then there is Tony Lindsay, who is the host of the Community Townhall. He is located in Brooklyn, is familiar with the chief and the chief's work prior to becoming the chief of the Community Affairs Division. And we are awaiting one more guest who will invite on later. But right now, I want to introduce everyone to Chief Jeffrey Maddrey. Chief Maddrey, I'm going to bring everyone else out and bring Chief on so that we can begin our conversation with Chief Jeffrey Maddrey. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Dr. Jenkins. I hope you're feeling well today.
I am, and so I hope the same for you, sir.
I'm okay. It's just been a busy day, but I'm okay, and I'm glad to be here.
We're happy to have you. Let me tell you, Chief, how we came to ask you to be here with us. We have been discussing police reform back and forth, in particular, me and Pastor Davis and Chaplain Tandra over this year with all that happened last year. And you were appointed by the commissioner at a critical time in our city. And we were having these back and forth platform discussions about police reform. And I remember, I don't know if he said it on the show, but Pastor Davis said, we've talked. Now it's time to bring the people we've been talking about to the table. And so when I reached out to you, you graciously said you'd be happy to come on the platform. And we're so happy to have you here. Would you like to share with the community, Chief, a little bit about your background and your service to the city over these years, and as it relates to your current role as chief?
Yes, sure, absolutely. Again, I'm Chief Maddrey, Jeff Maddrey. I'm the Chief of Community Affairs. This month, I'm celebrating the 1 year anniversary of taking over the Community Affairs Bureau. And the Community Affairs Bureau is one of the bureaus in the department that's really, really tasked with bridging the gap between police and community, going out there, into the streets and engaging the communities in a positive manner, being a resource to our communities, helping communities in ways you don't really expect from the police department. And that's what we've really been doing for the last year since I've been here in Community Affairs, really just trying to be a positive resource, be a positive impact towards families in need, youth in need, and just making sure that the communities know that there are truly officers in this department who want to have a great relationship and care about them, want to see the best of the communities. And we understand there's a lot of hurt and a lot of things that need to be corrected, but there are also a lot of good officers who do want to work with the community, who spend a lot of time in the community, and again, just help out as best as they can. This is my 30th year in the department as well. I've spent most of my career in Brooklyn. I was the Brooklyn Borough Commander. I ran a couple of precincts in Brooklyn, the 7-3 to 7-5, as well as being in charge of public housing. And no matter what role I had in the police department, to me, it was always important to have a strong community element, to engage people in a positive manner. And, every community I worked in and every community I left, I felt, and I truly believe I left with a lot of friends there. And they remind me I have a lot of friends there because they call me all the time and talk to me about things. So, when I close a chapter on this book, I'm gonna feel very, very positive about the relationships I've built and the people that I've met, and the people who I've turned to for the last few years for guidance and wisdom, and people who've turned to me for advice. A lot of great relationships built. And to me, I think that's what it's all about, just building those relationships.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to hear about your long career and where you are now. I have to be honest with everyone. I had worked closely with his predecessor, Chief Nilda Hoffman, and of course, I did not know Chief Maddrey because I'm up here in the Bronx, and like he just said, he spent much of his career in Brooklyn. But as soon as I reached out to her, she's like, "Excellent choice. Excellent choice." What can you say to a person who you're asking information about, someone who's coming on and they are feeling comfortable with their successor? So it really has been a joy working with Chief Maddrey. But Chief Maddrey knows that I'm that person. I'm that little gnaw at the ankle, when there are issues in the community, and he has not hidden from anything that I would bring up to him. And I appreciate you for that, Chief Maddrey. He's allowed me to not only share how I feel in a raw way, because I believe that our role as leaders is to represent the community and not just to stroke the egos of the NYPD. And he'll be the first one to say that that's not something he's seeking. He's seeking solutions. And certainly he does his best, in my opinion, and in my working with him through Daughters for Justice for nearly a year. He's celebrating his anniversary, but we've not been working with him that long, but it's nearly a year that we too have been working with him. Now, with all of that having been said, because I do continue to have a relationship of work with Chief Maddrey and his department through the Daughters for Justice, what I'm going to do tonight, just to be fair to all of the panelists, is I'm going to allow the panelists to ask questions during this dialogue with the chief rather than myself. But we are here tonight to discuss the ongoing reform that is being implemented within the NYPD. And Chief, your division, it plays a huge role because your officers are the ones that the community see first in times of our need and when we want to do something with the young people. But there's also been an uptick in crime and in violence in our city, and we're hoping to sort of have two conversations tonight around both issues. So what I'm going to do, panelists, is so that we can honor the time, we're already 9 minutes in, I'm going to go around to each of you as I see you so that you can have a question asked of the chief. Hopefully he will have the information that you are seeking in your question to be able to respond to you. And if that is okay with everyone, I'm going to start with Chaplain Tandra Birkett.
Doctor.
Yes, sir.
Jenkins, I have to switch to another phone. I'm having a problem with my phone charger here. My phone is dying pretty fast. I am already on another phone. I just need to be let in.
Okay. Oh, there. Where are you? I don't see you. I see the one that you're on.
I'm on one more phone. Let me see. Hold on. Let me put a display name on it.
Oh, there you are at the bottom. I see you down there.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I think I got you.
All right, great. I can get up.
And so I can drop the other one?
Yes.
Okay. Everyone knows that as he's coming on, that this is what we call technology.
I think you dropped the wrong one.
Did I drop the wrong one?
Or
No. He's spinning, and he'll be in.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Who is that
the
at
other
the
one
bottom?
was
Is
Chief
that you,
Maddrey. The
Craig?
new one is just Maddrey, right? Yeah.
Oh, right. You're right. Is that you at the bottom, Craig? I think so. It's sort of hard for me to see what's going on at the bottom of my screen. Hold on. Let me bring Craig in while we're waiting for the chief to come back. There you are. Hi, Craig.
Hi, guys. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hey.
We're just waiting for the chief to come back in, Craig.
Okay.
Okay. And welcome all of our viewers. I see you over there. Please don't hesitate to drop questions or comments, and we will make sure that we will scroll it across the screen. We're waiting for the chief to come back. Oh, thank you. Okay. I see him. I'm wondering if he wants me to add this one. Chief, is this one good?
Yeah, this one is good. I had to switch to a third phone. That's how bad it is.
Okay.
I'm in the heart of Midtown. You figure I got to get some good internet service. I'm sorry. Forgive me, everyone. I'm ready now.
No, it's fine. We just added our final panelist, Craig Visions, here. He's also from Brooklyn, a community activist and leader. So you have two Brooklynites, and the rest of us are from the Bronx, the best borough, of course, right? So, and that's why we're top heavy tonight. But Tandra, we're gonna let you go ahead and ask your question of the chief.
Good evening, Chief Maddrey. Thank you so much for meeting with us today. As Dr. Jenkins said, my name is Tandra Birkett, and I am an educational activist. I've been educated in the Bronx for over 25 years, and during my tenure as a teacher, I facilitated a conflict resolution center in the South Bronx, where I mediated issues between the Bloods and the Crips. I was also part of the task force that developed the citywide Empowering Boys program for the Department of Education. I had the pleasure of mentoring young men in the South Bronx in that capacity, and was able to see firsthand the issues that occur between police and youth, and the incidents of police misconduct that was accepted as normal in the community, and which resulted in developing youth mistrust, whether the youth were criminals or not. Understanding that police are a necessary and vital part of our community, my question is, how specifically do you intend to increase the measures to hold police accountable while working together to improve community relations? Because I believe that there needs to be a balance. I believe that accountability is necessary, but we also need to build stronger relationships between the community and the police department. So I think the balance is vital. How do we do both?
Okay, first I'm going to say thank you for your question. And also just thank you for all the powerful work that you have been doing in the community, especially with young men. And it's not easy, dealing with young men, especially when they have a variety of needs. But in terms of just how do we work better with the community while still being accountable, I think a lot of things has changed in the last year in terms of police accountability. You've seen some changes with the Civilian Complaint Review Board. You've seen they've put out a discipline matrix that they're going to use to, assign penalties to officers when they are in trouble. You see that they have, they've done a couple of other things as well. I mean,
we lost your volume, Chief. We lost your audio, rather. Oh my.
So there's been quite a few changes, in terms of law, in terms of policies, that's going to, help address a police accountability. But one of the things you also got to remember too, when you think of police accountability, is that, everyone has a right to have, a trial, due process. They have a right to be heard, and that's one of the first things you have to deal with. Even when someone makes a complaint against a police officer, they're still going to have their opportunity to be heard. So, and I think that's what really, kind of, I don't want to say hurt, but listen, everybody wants to see things done fast, and it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes you have to play through a process. So I do want everybody to understand that there's always a process, even with stronger accountability. You have to go through a process. But in terms of just working together, even with increased accountability and a stronger process, to me, everything is still about building relationships. If you have your local officers, if they're out there in the community and they're getting to know the people in the community and they're having organic conversations in the street and being a resource to young people, coming to your mentoring programs, sharing some of their stories and, ways that we can work better together, you'll see things like that. Not that they'll entirely go away, but there'll be a better relationship. There'll be a better understanding. And I think things will be able to be mediated and handled a little bit better and a little differently when there's just no relationship and two people encounter each other. And it's, everything's automatically viewed as problematic because we don't have a relationship. But when you do have a relationship, if you don't agree with something or if there's a challenge with something, a lot of times you can work through things and talk through things because you know each other. So my thing is always just, hey, listen to the officers. And when you're in your community, your sector, on your post, it is up to you to know the people out there. It's up to you to have the relationship out there with them. So when things go awry, people are saying, we know our officer, we could talk to him, we could talk to her, we can address this, we could deal with this. And in quite a few situations I've had in Brooklyn, we were able to put an end to it, not because someone's filed a civilian complaint, or a lot of times they just came to the precinct and talked to me, and I brought everybody into the room. Some of my best relationships I have in Brooklyn, Coach Chris LeGree, Reverend Melvin Anderson, was because I brought them into the room with the cops, and we were able to talk, shake hands, and understand each other. So relationship building is the most important thing to me.
So can I ask a follow-up, Deb? I don't know, a quick follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
My quick follow-up question is then, how do we specifically do that? We know that it is necessary and it's vital to build a relationship. You as the chief are one that has a heart for the community, but we know that every police officer does not. And that's really what the concern is in the spaces in our communities where it doesn't. That bridge has to be more deliberate about how that bridge is built, because it's not automatic. It's not just not come through osmosis. What specifically can we do? Because right now that relationship is severed in most ways. It is severed between the police and the community in many of especially with our young people, in many ways, not completely, but in many ways it is severed. What can we do to heal, to build bridges?
And even better follow-up question. I think, I encourage communities, and I've worked in multiple communities in different communities, and I've been in other communities where people go to the precinct and they visit the precinct and they go speak to the commander and they go to the community council meetings and stuff. And not only that, when they have events, they also reach out and invite the precinct to the events. They invite the NCOs, the local sectors. And, I think it's up to all of us to extend our hand first, especially the department. We have to have our events where we invite the community out. Right before I got here, I was in the Marcy houses where we did a basketball court over from forfeiture funds. And, I'm pretty well known in Marcy because I ran basketball, cops versus kids basketball tournaments in Marcy for about 5 or 6 years. So I've been out of Brooklyn for the last year, but I walked in Marcy. Every other step I took, I was giving somebody a pound or a handshake because I had the relationship. We have to do these events. We have to get together in our shared spaces, make them safe spaces. Do the things that we like to do in our communities. Barbecue, speak, have organic conversations, put our heads together and do different things. You have a mentoring group there that you work with young men. Has the police ever been allowed to come in there and speak with some of the young men? Opportunities like that, especially up in the Bronx. You got Detective Freddie Washington. We call him Freddie Boom Boom Washington from Welcome Back, Carter. He's one of the best in the business up there. A lot of people call me and say, we were dealing with Freddie Washington. He has such a great way of interacting with young people of all ages. A guy like him would be great in a room with young men. And when they sit down and talk to a guy like him, they say, you know what, wow, this guy's all right. Maybe they're not that bad. Let's get to know him a little bit more. Let's make sure he comes back. So we have to do things like that. We'll be opening up more basketball courts, refurbishing basketball courts throughout the community. I think we've been up there already for some fun days with some of the community people. We just have to continue to do things like that, and in the process have those strong conversations.
Excellent. Thank you for your question, Tandra, and your response, Chief. There was a question from the audience. I'm scrolling across the bottom, Chief, as it relates to the Civilian Complaint Review Board. Once we make a complaint, how is it that the follow-up occurs? Are you aware? Do you know the process?
I can't speak with 100% certainty, but when you file a complaint, it gets assigned to an investigator down there in the Civilian Complaint Review Board. And then it's up to them to follow up with whoever, the case officer. It's their responsibility to follow up with that person who's made the complaint and let them know how the process goes.
Understood. Thank you very much. Pastor Davis, do you have a question for the Chief?
Yeah, and it's more, hi, Chief. I'm Pastor Tony Davis.
Hey, Pastor.
Good to see you. Really, it's just for the edification of the audience. So Pastor Deb has had this platform for over a year, and I think it's been very edifying for the people that tune in. And it'd just be good for their sake, talk about a day in the life for you. What is the specifics of your role? You talked about some of that already, but just more specifics, like what's a typical day in the life for Chief Maddrey? What is it that you want the community to know that you're working on, initiatives? Again, a day in the life.
I tell you, that's a great question. And I'm just trying to even figure out where to start. My days are so hectic, but hectic in a good way. So think about this. Let me just recap today. And I got my driver here, Elliot, with me. So Ellie might help me remember my day. I got up this morning. I went to a meeting with the police commissioner at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I tell you, I hate when he calls these 9 o'clock in the morning meetings. And tomorrow he called 1:30. And I'm like, can't we do like 10 or 11? But so think about it. I got up in the morning. I went and did some business, right? Then I went and met with a civilian member of the service who I used to work with about 15 years ago. And she reached out to me. She wanted to talk to me about SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. And she revealed to me that she lost a child through SIDS 20 years ago. And she wanted to do something to bring more awareness and have the department deal with it with more sensitivity. So I started with a meeting with my boss, and then I met with another civilian member of the service whose interests had nothing to do, with necessarily the police department in terms of work, but how we could do something that help the community out when families deal with trauma. Then after that, I went back to the office. I did a little of my paperwork. Then I went over to the Marcy houses where we revealed the new basketball court. John Starks actually came out there. We had some fun with the young people. I gave a young man a PlayStation 5 for beating John Starks in a 3-point shooting contest. I saw a lot of young men out there who I've been knowing for the last 6 years playing basketball. Actually, I'm going to bring these kids from Brooklyn to come beat up on some of the Bronx basketball players because the Bronx has been challenging me. So I'm taking them over to the Andrew Jackson house to play the Bronx guys, and they're going to beat up on them. Sorry, Dr. Jenkins.
Yes, sir.
And then I ran down here for an event for the Police Foundation. Everybody in there had like a suit and tie on. You see what kind of shirt I have on, a little polo shirt. And now I'm having this conversation with the community about police reform and stuff. So you're talking about a lot of ups and downs. 1 minute I'm laughing with kids, now it's here to be serious and talk about how we can make things better in our communities. I'm talking to one of our members about, the loss of a child, family trauma, and then also just doing my regular business with the police commissioner, talking about, community initiatives. So it's just a lot of different ups and downs. Over the last week, I've been dealing with the family of the 10-year-old Justin Wallace. I've been dealing with that family. I spoke at a vigil for him. We're helping the family with funeral arrangements and stuff. A lot of things that we do behind the scenes that people don't know about, and it's really to help and be a resource for the community. So that a day like that, it's crazy, but it's fun and it's fulfilling. It's rewarding.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Davis. That was a good question because most of the time, all we see is what is happening to us. And we do forget. And I tell you, Chief Maddrey can tell you, I'm that person in his meetings that's all about why I came. But we do have to remember that they're human. And so that was a good question, Pastor Davis. I appreciate that because often I'll call the chief and he's so busy, but he'll still take the call. And I appreciate that about you, Chief. I'm going to hold off on the question that my brother, who always visits this show, has over here until Gbenguze comes back because he was having similar technical problems like the chief was having. And then I'll ask you a question, my brother Junius. Craig, are you ready? Just going in the carousel. There you
Okay. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Hi, Chief Maddrey. Good to meet you again. Actually, I've met you before, just in passing. I've met you before and shook your hand. So it's good to meet you again. I guess my question is, as far as when it comes to police brutality and when we talk about the problems that we have between the community relations and police departments, usually after a controversial shooting or anything, or incident that happens, leadership usually comes out and says, there's always a few bad apples. There's always a few bad apples. And from my perspective, we have never truly identified who those bad apples are. I feel like my life experiences in dealing with these issues has always been the onus on the community to kind of go out into their community and find out who the troublemakers are in the community and speak up and let the police know, who the bad guys are in the community. And I remember there was a video Eric Adams put out one time talking about encouraging parents to go through the bags of the kids and find out where the guns and the drugs are. And even one time, I think Kamala Harris was locking up parents, as a way to hold them accountable for their kids being truant. So my question to you is there a program in place that encourages cops to call out and point out the bad apples that we always hear are in the police department, but we never can identify? Is there a program in place that encourages and rewards cops for kind of saying, here, this guy is a bad guy and we don't want him, dirtying up our badge and our profession. We want him out of the force?
Well, and thank you for the question. There is no program like that rewards officers for, say, turning in another officer who a bad officer. Again, there's no program like that per se where they reward the officers, but it is our policy for officers to report misconduct. So if you see an officer doing something wrong, stealing, being excessively brutal to somebody, something like you are supposed to report it. You are supposed to report the misconduct. There are things that go on in the police department internally that a lot of people don't know. All right. Police officers get fired all the time. They get suspended all the time. Things happen within the police department that more than communities know. Even internally in the police department, and a lot of times you may have someone who that maybe you don't feel too good about them and stuff, but it won't be to a point where you could even report them. You just don't feel comfortable with them. Like, I don't want to work with this person. It happens all the time in the police department where people be like, I don't want to work with that person. I don't really jive with that person. I don't like how that person flows. That happens all the time. But it's not even at the level where they did something wrong. It's just they don't like how they do things. They don't like how they carry themselves. So things like that happen. It happens in all professions where you just say, I don't rock with this person. But in terms of a program that they're supposed to do something and they get rewarded for it, no. But I'll tell you the flip side to it too, is if somebody does something and you're there and you didn't say something about it, you're going to get in trouble along with them.
Got you that. So just a gentle suggestion, as far as, and I know you just spoke about that there are things that happen, sort of behind the scenes that, as far as discipline, that the community doesn't even know. And I think a big part of building trust with our community is to increase the transparency on what the discipline process is. And I really am baffled by the amount of secrecy that goes on with such high profile cases, and especially when the outcome is not the favorable outcome that the community would like, and then it's clouded in this secrecy. It just builds more and more distrust. So it doesn't matter how many basketball games we go to, when we are locked out of the process for a profession that's supposed to be serving us, there can never really be a substantial amount of trust building there while we're still hiding behind a wall of secrecy.
Right. Well, and one thing I'll clarify for you, when it's something that's high profile, it's usually when you do know it. When it's high profile, that's when it's in the paper, that's when the news and stuff. There's a lot of smaller things that happen that are not high profile, and that happens just on a daily basis, that is addressed and that's dealt with, that's not publicized, because again, it's just not high profile. The high profile stuff everyone's aware of. Was if a bad shooting happened right now, you would all know about it. But it's just smaller things that sometimes you just don't know about, that it may not get a play. I had an officer who worked for me many years ago, and about 5 years ago, he stole $35, and it got caught on film that he stole $35. They fired him for it. They fired him for stealing $35. You've never ever read about it. You've never seen it. But the truth of the matter is, he got caught. They caught him on film stealing $35, and they canned him.
Wow.
So, and this cop honestly, when I saw the video, I don't even want to tell you how I felt. The cop had almost 20 years on the job, and he lost it all for $35.
Wow.
And I mean, if he did that, I don't know. Lord knows what else he may have done, but that's what I do know, and that's what I saw, and I was just in dismay. Like, wait a minute, he stole $35. That's it. And is this really worth everything you worked for? I would have gave him $35 if he really needed, and wouldn't have. So, but he got caught and he got fired. And like I said, it was nothing that was ever even published. Probably not too many people, even within the department, knew this happened. Because things happen in Brooklyn with cops that cops in the Bronx don't even know about. Because this is a 50,000 person department.
Right.
Are you ready, Tony?
Yeah. I'm sorry to interject.
Well, let me just respond. I thought it was a great question, Craig. I really do. And I would, if you don't mind, Craig, can I redress that question in a suggestion that there may become a whistleblower program where those cops who actually do what the policy says, Chief, are protected from the hazing, from the threats. I don't know how that would work itself out, but I've talked to a lot of officers. We actually had that conversation because they can tell you they were on this platform when you all were doing the recruitment drive, and I was trying to encourage people to tell Black and Latinos apply for the police officers exam, but we've all known officers on the force who are working under internal duress because they do see things and aren't feeling comfortable to report it because of blacklisting possibilities. So just taking your question, Craig, and to you, the Chief, maybe you all internally need to encourage more of this, if you see something, say something, type of behavior from other officers who care so much about their badge that they don't want to see those bad apples ruin it for all of them.
Right. Well, But one thing too, also, all the officers in this department, that they can report anything anonymously too. So it's not that they have to go out there and wave the flag and say, "Hey, look, I'm reporting this." There's a process where they can do it anonymously as well. So,
Okay.
a lot of things get reported within the department, a lot more than people realize, a lot more than I'm even aware of, because when things are reported anonymously, certain complaints, they're not allowed to be publicized. They're not allowed to be publicized.
Understood. Tony, you wanted to jump in, and it's your time for your question anyway. You wanted to respond.
Yeah, how you doing there, Chief?
Hey,
yeah.
Doing?
All right. Well, just very quickly, kind of pertaining to what you were talking about with the guy getting fired, and a lot of times there are situations of accountability that we just don't know about. I was thinking that perhaps if there was a little more transparency in those areas for the public, perhaps there would be a little more trust in the police department. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, okay, it's, the guy got caught for stealing $35. That's kind of crazy, right? But at the same time, people are getting brutalized and beaten by police officers. And I'm not really seeing any police officers getting fired for that. So I think if we look at it in that type of a context, we could see that there are certain issues that we really have to deal with when it really comes to police accountability. Now, I'll just get to my question. All right. So, and let me just say, Chief Maddrey, I've met you a couple of times. We've talked a couple of times. You probably don't even remember me.
I know you. I'm looking at you. Your picture just came up bigger, so now I can see your face a little better.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. But I will say one thing. Chief Maddrey, you are definitely one of the good apples. You have always been one of the quote unquote good apples that people talk about in the police department. And we know that there are a lot of officers. There are officers just like you out there. Now, my question is more so about your new position as, the head of community affairs. Now, public sentiment is that community affairs is nothing more than like marketing for the NYPD, like a public relations campaign without any real substance. And I'll explain why. There seems to be, like, I live in Brooklyn. I live in East New York, Brooklyn, right? And there seems to be a very different relationship between the community affairs officers and the community and the beat officers that interact with the community on the regular, right? Like, a lot of times people feel like they're getting brushed off to the community affairs officers with no real solutions that are being offered to the issues that we're facing in our community. Like, if you look in my neighborhood right now, it looks like the 80s out there right now. And it's crime has been on the rise, and noticeably it has happened. It has really surged since the beginning of the defund the police movement, right? And there is a lot of postulation that a lot of this is due to slow down from police officers, low morale, because of certain policies that were out there. Because I also know that, a lot of people, they get arrested. They don't even really get arrested. You just go to the precinct for anything, including assault, and they give you a DAT and you're out the door like 5 minutes later. So it kind of keeps this Gotham City vibe all around New York right now. So my question is, after saying all of that, is how effective is your position as community affairs, the head of community affairs, when it comes to really and truly affecting change for the people who live in these communities and are going through hell right now?
Oh man, that's $100,000 question of the day. So listen, you hit on so many different topics. So let me just try and address some of them, and when you talk about what I do and how I can help communities, remember, I'm also very much limited by policies that are enacted by other entities as well. And I'll give you an example. And you know what? I'm going to say it. People may not be happy with it, but I'm going to say it. Listen, if they enacted bail reform, all right? And I'm all for bail reform, but it has to be really, really structured and really, really put in a way that makes sense. If someone breaks into your home, Tony, right now, break into your home and take all your stuff and rummage your stuff, should they be allowed to walk into a court and walk out in 3 hours? Of course, you're going to say, I'm not going to say what you're going to say, but you just ponder on that, all right? Bail reform is supposed to be built for someone who walks into a store and takes some soap. You understand? Something very low level.
Right.
You have people. I just spoke to a friend of mine. All right, she works in the court section. She told me out of her own mouth, I sit here and listen to these cases. People, she said, I watched the case. This girl was beat to a pulp, and the judge said, "Sorry, I can't do nothing. I got to let your boyfriend go."
Yep.
We have to make stuff that strengthens the community, and empowers the police to make sure we don't go back to the 80s. People have been on gun charges and walking out the door. But yet we're up to over 200 shootings, and there's no consequences for carrying a gun. When things like that occur, of course it's going to have a negative impact on this department. You don't think this department's a young department. You have a 25-year-old cop who chases somebody down to arrest them for carrying a gun or hurting somebody, and the person is back out on the street before they can do the paperwork. You don't think that's discouraging? That should be discouraging to everybody. All right? Like I said, I don't believe in criminalizing poverty. I don't believe in that, criminalizing poverty. Like I said, someone who's trying to get something to eat, someone who's trying to maybe get some toiletries so they can kind of clean themselves up, we shouldn't penalize them. But someone who's robbing people, hurting people, carrying guns in our community, they're carrying guns. We're up over 200 shootings. The department is making more gun arrests than ever. So what does that tell us? That there are more people being shot. There's more guns in the street. The cops are trying their best, but if there's no consequences, people are going to walk out. There are people who've been caught 4 or 5 times with guns already in the last 2 years, and they're walking around here. But when Plexico Burris shoots himself in the leg with his own gun, he goes to jail for 3 years.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I agree.
Our laws, our rules have to really make sense. Like I said, I understand our legislatures are trying to do their best job. They're trying to work for the communities. They're trying to help people. But like I said, we weren't at the table when bail reform happened. And I say we, the police department, and even some regular community people, to sit down and say, hey, does this make sense to you? If we break into your home, you can walk away. If you carry a gun, can I walk away? Let's get everybody's voice at the table so we can really understand, like, what does the community want? If I went to Brownsville right now and talk to a certain segment of Brownsville, or if I went up to Co-op City and talk to a certain segment of Co-op City, I'm pretty sure I hear both sides. People are saying, it's their first. But there are people who are saying, listen, if people walk around guns, put them in jail for a couple of months. You're going to hear both segments because I hear it every day.
Right.
So, certain policies in community, as the chief of community affairs, I have no power over. I have no power. And, the police commissioner, say what you want to say about him. I have a lot of conversations. Well, I talk to him one-on-one every week.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about certain things. And I tell him, hey, commissioner, you got to do this. Commissioner, this is not a good look. Commissioner, I need you to come to this location and stuff. So at the same time, trying to get him into the community, let people see that he's not as bad as people want to portray him, but also talking to him about things that he can do and enact to make things a little bit better. Commissioner Shea has made some tough calls. I tell you what, you said the shooting started happening around the defund the police time. The shootings went up the minute he said there'll be no more anti-crime out there.
Yep.
Said there is no more anti-crime. The unit that really, really was tasked to get guns, but also a unit that probably took the most complaints because they were doing some of the ugliest work you could do, going out there and trying to get guns off people. The minute they said that unit was no more, that's when the shootings went up. And then on top of that too, listen, I heard from my own ears in the street, people talking about, there's no anti-crime, we can wear a mask, we should be out here. And it's like, whoa.
Yep.
out here who think it's their time. To me, and this is just my opinion, this ain't Chief Maddrey's opinion. This is Jeff Maddrey's opinion. Who's been out here benefiting the most for a lot of the changes with the pandemic and defund the police and anti-crime going? The people who value street life, the people who want to be in the mix. They're out here shooting with impunity. They're getting released out of jail with impunity. Check the stats. Look at the numbers. It's right there.
Yeah.
I do want to say really quickly. Yeah. I agree so much with what you said right now. And people that know me would probably think that I would disagree with everything that you're saying right now, especially when it comes to like police accountability. I believe that the way that they've been using this broad brush for this legislation, like lumping everybody together. Like you said, the guy that might steal a loaf of bread, he's getting the same type of treatment as the guy that just shot somebody around the corner. They both back on the street before the afternoon is over. And I think the problem is the community needs to be involved in these decisions more than, and that's why, like, when people like you in your position, I think it's very important to serve as a bridge between, let's say, well, the police department and the community, but people just want to be confident that it's really going to be something that's tangible that we can touch. And before I go, I do want to say, though, I would love to be able to have some one-on-one conversations with you, because I do this work out here in these streets, but it's very difficult to get some time to talk to some of the people, you know?
Anytime, Tony. All you do is give me a call. I have Dr. Jenkins shoot you my number. You give me a call. This is what I do. I come out to the communities. I go out and speak with people. My doors are always open. My doors are open for anybody on this call, anybody in the city. That's what community affairs is. I open the door up. I listen to people. I try my best to help. Sometimes I'm able to help. Sometimes we're able to solve things.
Right.
Sometimes it's a little bit out of our hands. But the community really needs to have more of a voice at the table. I go into all sorts of communities, and I hear, what I hear on the news is one thing. What I hear behind
the street is
doors
different.
And privately, people don't want to walk outside and fear gun violence. People don't want to do this. Do you want? Listen, I have to tell people like this, and not that I can do it, not that I can do it as the chief of community affairs. The police commissioner could tell all the cops right now in this city, yo, don't get out the car, don't confront nobody. If you get a 911 call, answer the call, be polite, be helpful, and go as soon as you finish helping. Is that going to stop the people from shooting? As much as we need police reform, we need a little bit of community reform too.
Yes.
Because it doesn't go hand in hand, where we say we don't want the cops to do this, we don't want the cops to do that, we don't want the cops to do this, but nothing changes in the community. And matter of fact, it's worse. They're shooting people more now than they did in 2021 and in 2019, 2018, 2017. They're shooting people more now. They're shooting people numbers that go back 20 and 30 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're fighting for police reform, and we need to have some changes. We want to have a very professional department that works for the community, works hand in hand. But we also got to have some community reform too. We can't say, the cops don't do this. But hey, all the young men and women out here in the community, keep shooting. Shoot all you want. Do what you want. Can't do that. The homicide numbers are going through the roof in the city. Shootings are going through the roof. And it's not even, hey, I got beef with you and I'm shooting you. Now they're shooting, the grandmothers are getting clipped. The 10-year-olds are getting clipped. The 5-year-old in Times Square is getting clipped. Everyone's getting clipped now. Yeah. And this has got to stop. So, yes, let's have police reform. I'm all for it. We got to start reforming our communities too. People got to stop shooting.
And Ms. Sharice just said basically what you said, Chief. Reform is a two-way street. And I can tell you, one of the members of the Community Townhall has been saying for as long as it's been active, we need to attend the community board meetings, the precinct council meetings. And when he was saying that, and I'm just going to give him a shout out, Brother Jamal Muhammad. Am I saying that right, Tony?
Jamal, yeah.
Jamal Muhammad. you all were doing the precincts on councils and the meetings that you would have with the community, they were all Zoom. I'm sure at some point they're going to resume being in the precincts, but there was no reason for us to miss them. And so we really do have to get ourselves involved. It's like they meet once a month. And for us up here in Co-op City, all of you know that our precinct is so large, they travel from Co-op City to City Island to Throgs Neck to make sure, and to the Greek, right over there, right off of the 95, to make sure we're all able to at least voice our opinions to our COs. And so we only know, like you said, Chief, what's happening because it hits the media. But if we are actually attending these meetings, we'll know firsthand what's going on. And a lot is going on. So I'm so glad that you both were just talking about how crime is out of hand. And one of the reasons why is because crime is out of hand in the city. It's getting worse. And the community does have a responsibility to help keep ourselves safe and not interfere with the work that we want y'all to do to help protect us. We want good officers. And Nef,
Right.
I saw your comment, Nef, and I did not ignore it, but I just don't want it. I want to say her comment, but I want us to also take onus for our own communities. You know, we have a responsibility to not allow those who are acting badly in our communities overrun our communities.
Right.
And so that really necessitates a relationship with the NYPD. As much as most of us don't trust them, right? We still need them while they're here. We pay them to be here. And so we have to allow them access to us, those of us who are leaders, and all of you here are leaders. Our time is winding down. I have another question for you, Chief, from my brother Gbenguze, who's up here in the Bronx also. Gbenguze, would you please share your question with the Chief? Not, are you muted? Can't hear you. Good evening, everybody.
Okay,
thank you all for joining us.
Hello, Chief
Okay,
Maddrey.
yes.
How are you today? Okay.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
Yes, go ahead.
I don't know. Are you frozen?
He's frozen.
You're frozen. He's frozen again.
Do you know his question?
Okay.
I don't. But he does tout the effectiveness of the NCOs often, Chief. So while we're waiting for him, that question
And I think
came
that
up.
what can
there
be
you are.
done?
We couldn't hear you, Gbenguze. Can you start over with your question?
Okay, sure, no problem. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, hearing you now.
Oh, okay, yes. Okay, thank you, Chief. Yes, the NCO program, it's something that I'm a very big proponent of because it bridges the gap, brings a lot of community relationship between the police officers and the community. But a lot of times when I speak to a lot of people, they've never heard of it, don't even think it exists. No, so what can be done to sort of give it the market and the promotion it needs? Because in my area in the Bronx here, based on the NCOs that I've interacted there, it's been quite effective.
All right. And
Yeah. Thank you.
That's a great observation. We you know, when we first came out with the NCO program, and when I was in charge of Brooklyn, we were the first borough that really up and running with the NCO program. I had all 10 precincts running. We were doing a lot of boots on the ground type marketing. Like I used to tell them, like, you better go up and down these blocks, walk into the stores, talk to people, meet people in the street. And, you know, it's like anything else. It's a novelty. It's new. Everybody's pushing. And then we're here a while. You know, it's definitely time for us to do a little bit more to just make sure the community understand what the neighborhood coordination officer program is, as well as the neighborhood coordination philosophy.
Can anyone hear the Chief?
Engaging people, thinking of ways to be creative and do different things in the community. And that's how we build a relationship. Like I said, I was just in Marcy earlier, and you know, I had about 4 different people say, "Chief, can we do this? Can we do that? Can we do that?" I told everybody, "Call me. Let's get a date together. Let's do it. Call me. Get a date together. Let's do it." I just got a call up from Mother Jackie Rowe Adams from Harlem Mother Saves. She called me. She hit me with a date. Chief, I want to do this, that, the other. Mother Jackie, give me the date. It's already on the calendar. We'll be there. So, you know, we just got to make sure our communities know about the programs. They know the officers, and they understand what it's all about. It's not, hey, I know the officer, and, you know, we're able to talk and speak, and I can reach out to him. I know the officer. Now let's put our energy together. Let's create that synergy. Let's do something in the community so now more people know, and we can start building better relationships. That's what it comes down to. So it's a good program. You know, we've had a lot of challenges over the last year with the pandemic and some of the other things, the murder of George Floyd, some of the things that may have thrown us off our direction a little bit. But the police commissioner has been talking about it. The leadership, we've been talking about it, and we're pushing. And neighborhood policing is the way to go.
So, Chief, just for the audience sake, because Gbenguze, he talks about it often, I have a comment up here from my friend Leslie Peterson, who happens to be the president of the Co-op City branch of the NAACP. She recently had a meeting where she invited our NCO officers from the 45th precinct to explain what their program is and what they do. So when we hear neighborhood coordinating officers, Chief, what is the vision? What should we expect when we hear that? And how, is there a strict demarcation between them and your community affairs officers?
I would say no. Even though they work in two separate bureaus. Listen, we're all police officers, and it's all about the community. Community first. That's what I believe. So, NCOs, community affairs. When you have meetings, first of all, they should all be there. Community affairs should be there. Neighborhood coordination officers be there. In some cases, the precinct commander should be there, a sergeant or lieutenant, or maybe the sector concern. There should be a good representation. You know, notwithstanding an emergency or something like that. Sometimes there's emergencies going on, and all the forces are dealing with that. But they should all be at the meeting. And when you have your neighborhood coordination officers and community affairs, I can say in the same breath, they're supposed to be there to help with the solutions for whatever the problem is on the block. So if you say, for instance, on this block we have problem X, Y, Z, then it should be a tandem where the police and the community say, all right, this is how we're going to address this problem. We're going to reach out to this city agency. Maybe you need Department of Homeless Services or Mental Services or whatever, sanitation. Y'all get them involved. And then all together, this is how we're going to clean this up. This is how we're going to fix this. This is how we're going to address this. And that's how it's supposed to work. That's how it's really supposed to work. You know, if it's a drug problem on the corner, all right, listen, the police and the community here, how are we going to handle this? You know what? This is a very sensitive topic. Let's close the doors to the meeting. Maybe there's only 2 or 3 people in the room with the police talking about a sensitive topic. I've had kind of conversations through, you know, my time in the department, and I used to tell people at meetings, if you got a sensitive topic, don't talk about it publicly. Talk to me on the side. And people will come to me and say, the house next door, they're doing prostitution. Guys, all right, no problem. You got to call me at this number when you see it. That way I can send the cops there. So we fixed a lot of things like that because people were in contact. They were talking. We were doing things quietly, but we were working together. So that's what it really comes down to. Some things are not sensitive. Hey, we're having a problem with people dumping garbage. All right, no problem. We'll sit out there in our marked car. We'll write a summons to the next person that comes. Then we'll call sanitation and clean it up. Oh, they've been writing graffiti on the walls. All right, Saturday morning, we're going to come out with a couple of cans of paint. Cops and community will paint it over. That's what it's really supposed to be about. When y'all are doing things and y'all fixing things, you know, block by block, building by building, and everybody's saying, wow, you know what, we're out here talking, we're working, and it's mutually beneficial. That's how the NCO program is supposed to work.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Chief. Chief, you have a Cash for Guns event coming up, I believe, in the Bronx. I don't have the location. Do you need me to pull that up to share?
I don't have it with me either. I don't think so. You got it on your phone? Let me just double check.
I wanted him to share it because we're over here talking about how the gun violence is. And
they got 79 guns out of Queens.
Wow.
Bronx gonna top Queens. I hope they do.
I hope so too. plenty of guns around, and they're giving away iPads and cash. So, you know.
And I'm sorry to share with you, Dr. Jenkins, the Bronx has the worst numbers right now. So
Do we?
we have to take the most guns out of the Bronx right now because the
Okay.
Bronx shooting numbers are extremely high, and
Wow, more than Brooklyn?
way more than Brooklyn. They're
Way
probably
more.
double, more than double of what Brooklyn got.
Wow.
No, you know, we retract that statement. You know, when I really Brooklyn is split into two patrol boroughs, Brooklyn North and Brooklyn South.
Right.
I was in charge of Brooklyn North. Brooklyn North is where the heavy amount of shootings go. So when I usually compare the Bronx to Brooklyn, I'm only using Brooklyn North. The Bronx is over 100 has over 100 more shootings this year.
Wow.
Brooklyn North has about 40.
Damn.
So the Bronx, I mean, actually, the department is putting a lot of resources in the Bronx because the shooting numbers are just so high right now in the Bronx.
Wow.
As one of the Bronx people, that really concerns me. And as was mentioned earlier, would love to work even more to really deal with that issue. And one of my questions or suggestion is, what are we doing to build better relationships? What can we do together with the youth in the community? Because many of our youth, first time that they encounter the police is in a negative way. So from that point forward, in that first encounter, that's how they build their understanding of who the police are and the role that they play. And we've talked about it throughout today, full circle, about the balance between accountability, you know, and community relations, which was my comment in the beginning. We have to do more because even in our school system, and like I said, worked in schools for over 25 years, it's all about, you know, criminalizing the young people. It's very few. I personally, in my programs, have brought the police in to talk to the young people and to have organic relationships. But program-wise, there's very little that occurs where the police are coming and building relationship. It's about policing our youth. If we want to change that dynamic, what's the program? You know, it's not really something that's in place right now. It's like a spot where a speaker might come in, but there's no real program. I would love to be supportive of a program that would build a better relationship because those shootings have to come down. We got to do better in our communities, and I want to help.
Well, let me, you know, and I have to take a strong look in the Bronx and see what we got going on in the Bronx. But we do have programs like tomorrow. Actually, we just moved TAG up to the Bronx, teaching a generation. We do a program here in Harlem we started with back in January when one of our reverends up here. And it's called TAG, Teaching a Generation. We started in Harlem. I was at the very first one they did. We had about 20 kids there. We did it. We've been doing it every Wednesday since January. How many kids we pushing now? About 80, 90 kids. 80, 90 young kids. They come. They ask the hard questions. But we're seeing the difference. We're seeing how they interact differently with us. They're actually leaning on us for more support and doing things.
So how are we going to get y'all TAG in the Bronx?
We just moved it to the Bronx. I got to find out where we're doing it at in the Bronx.
All right. Because we obviously, based upon the numbers that you just shared, we need it because of what's happening regarding you saying 100 more shootings. We need some, you know.
Do is I'm gonna get the gun buyback information to Dr. Jenkins. I'll give you the TAG information for Thursday. Now tomorrow, TAG is doing a Father's Day thing. And I think they got a Matthew Knowles, Beyonce's father's coming. He's going to speak at the event. About 4 or 5 other guest speakers. So we're going to be doing that Father's Day event tomorrow. I know Thursday we got the Father's Day event up in Co-op City with Freddie Washington. But in terms of, but we have to do something, and I have to make sure we have to have something sustainable in the Bronx because we have some stuff in Brooklyn. We have some stuff in Brooklyn with the youth center. In Far Rockaway, I have the Rockaway Colts, and we're supposed to move one part of their program up to Harlem. That's going to be sponsored by the New York Giants, the Harlem Giants, where they do football. They play football. That's the fun part of it, but it's mentoring, education. The DOE is going to supply the tutors. They provide a hot meal for the kids. it's a whole big component that goes along with the football program. The football is just it's the smaller portion of it, the fun portion of it. But there's an educational piece, a tutoring piece, a mentoring piece, a food piece, and then they play, and then they do some football drills, exercise, and stuff like that. In Queens, I have a couple of programs in Queens. I have a very dynamic group of youth officers in Queens. Barrett and Jared Barksdale, they do all kinds of things. Over the weekend, they did a hooping for peace, all girls basketball tournament. Took 2 days to do the whole tournament. We have some good stuff. I just have to double check. I just don't think we haven't really solidified the Bronx. We've worked up there with Bervin Harris. We've done some scenario-based training with Bervin Harris's kids up there in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly think we could do a better job up there in the Bronx. And I know when I first came to community affairs, someone told me, like, yo, the Bronx is a little bit of a void in the Bronx. We got to push a little harder up there. So we're going to definitely get something going in the Bronx. And if you would partner with us, we would love to have you as a partner. We could use
Thank you. I will follow up with Dr. Deb because I'm in the South Bronx, and as you know, that is one of the most problematic areas, that is necessary. So I definitely will follow with Dr. Jenkins to connect with you.
Absolutely. Listen, Chief, we are so happy that you are here. I have one more person there in the comments. I did my show with them last week. I'll send you the link, Chief. It was about their program in the South Bronx as well. I forget those houses, by the Washington Avenue houses, and they are actually doing training, vocational training, painting, electrical and things like that. This is another program not too far from Bervin Harris. We want to just make all of these connections, and I'm just shouting out Dr. Brother Topek Ben Yisrael, because they're doing the work, because all young people are not going to get those hoop dreams, and all young people are not going to go to college. But if we are able to train them with skills training and connect it with the work that you all are trying to do,
That's right.
I think that can turn their lives around. And so, Chief, I will connect all of everybody here. My friend Leslie over the NACP is asking also, but Leslie, come out on Thursday. The Chief will be up here in Co-op City for the Father's Day event. Listen, Chief Maddrey, you have given us 7 additional minutes, and we appreciate you for that.
I'm enjoying this conversation. It's truly it's a breath of fresh air when I can talk and have real serious dialogue with intelligent people and people who are respectful. And this is how we're, let me say it the right way. This is how we are going to build and how we are going to get better, by just having respectful, serious dialogue, trying to understand each other a little bit better, and figuring out how we can bring the synergy together. Like I said, I definitely want to come up to the Bronx. I got to just double check to see what we got going on in the Bronx. And we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of people up there with programs already.
That's right.
If we can come up there and be a part of it, add an additional element, build some of these relationships with the kids, that's what we want to do. And it's not about hoop dreams. We do a lot of basketball, but we have a lot of other programs as well, too. A lot of academic programs, our options program. We teach kids about emotional intelligence, de-escalation, financial literacy. We have a little bit of everything in community affairs that we can give to our young people. So, and we have an options program up in the Bronx that's relatively new. So we have to build that up. So I'll be looking for young people up there.
Awesome. Can we shout out your deputy inspector, because she took it upon herself to start doing the resume writing. Remember, Chief? I forget her name. I'm so sorry.
Deputy Inspector Victoria Perry.
Yes.
An amazing individual. You're talking about a true, intelligent thought leader. One day she's gonna have this job. She's gonna be the chief of community affairs. She'll probably be the police commissioner, because she's just dynamic. She's so smart. And when you talk about someone who cares,
caring,
she does all over this city is amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah. And I just wanted to share that, because we don't know but they are doing the community affair. For me, that's what my money is, the Community Affairs Bureau, especially under the leadership of Chief Maddrey, but also he has assembled a really good team. And let's do this work together, everybody, and let's make our tent wider so that we can change our city and make it into what we want it to be, because we do not want to go back to the 80s that Tony was talking about. It's been a joy having you, Tandra, Pastor Davis, Tony Lindsay, Craig Vision, my friend Gbenguze, and of course our special guest, Chief Maddrey, along with us tonight. We want you to continue to be safe. We pray for you and your officers, your driver, all of you. Tomorrow, join me again for a special edition, everybody, because last week I had to cancel when former Chief Ralph Godby from the department, Detroit, he was the chief of both the police and he was the chief of the education police. He has a different perspective. He's on the outside now, and he has some interesting and innovative and refreshing perspectives on the way forward. So we had our own chief here tonight who's doing the work in the NYPD, and we applaud you, Chief Maddrey. Tomorrow we will hear from Chief Ralph Godby. Come back at the same time, same station, Facebook Live and YouTube. God bless you all. Have a good night.
Good night, Dr. Jenkins. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Chief.
Good night.